Welcome once again to Stephen Green. And Stephen, you've got a wonderful week of fine weather waiting for you. But before we get to the happiness story, we'll continue with Sir Keir Starmer and his big speech this morning. And there he was surrounded by Union flags, and it was like a party political broadcast. What did you make of it?
I mean, he's absolutely right that children are being harmed by going on social media. I mean, that is that's undeniable. I mean, there are predators out there, waiting for them, exploiting childhood innocence and naivety, ready to, I don't know, blackmail them into sending explicit pictures, or even to meet up, and even when even when it's genuine adolescent boys, perhaps on the other end, there are still pressures to share explicit stuff, and the whole thing gets sexualized. But I mean, that's so there is there is all of that element, and then the third thing, of course, is that children can end up being singled out and bullied online. The object of life becomes securing likes on Instagram or wherever, and if you don't get likes, then your self-esteem plummets, and and there are no end of maybe even people in the same class or the same age who are willing to point out your flaws and to attack you on social media. So that, yeah, I mean, clearly, children should not be on social media. That's clear. Now, the big question then is, what do you do about it, and
Well, can
whose
I say at this
responsibility?
stage, Stephen, half the adults shouldn't be on social media. You read the comments and they're awful, effing and jeffing, without thought, cruel, the stuff that's on there.
Look, Rodney, too many people ignore Fabi's principle, named after the MP Michael Fabricant, who famously said to a fellow Conservative MP who was sounding off on social media, he said to her, "Have you been drinking?" In other words, the first principle is, if you've been drinking, the same thing for serving in the temple in the Old Testament. If you've been drinking, don't go there. Don't even think about going on social media or making an offering in the temple, for that matter. So yeah, there's too many people doing it. And the second, of course, thing is that a lot of people say things on social media which they would not say face to face to people. And the Apostle Paul says exactly the same. He says, "Look, when I'm with you, I'm as nice as anything, but when I write to you, you can't bear it." So it's and as for the church, I mean that there was a spoof on the satirical website Babylon Bee, the American satirical website Babylon. If you haven't seen it, guys, go on, search for Babylon Bee and go on there. And you'll be amused, I think. But they said but they posted a headline which said Christians agree to set differences apart on social media in order to preach the gospel. And he got in the article and he said, "Just kidding. We're just going to go on the way we are." So and so said, "I could preach the gospel, but there's all these Christians in error there, and it's my duty to point it out to them." So we start attacking each other on social media, and then the Muzzies and the secularists are like, "Ah, look at those Christians always attacking each other." So it's we ought to, some of us, well, all of us ought to know better about going on social media. But coming back to the children, there's it's difficult to know whether Keir Starmer is more concerned about the children or about his so-called legacy. Does he have a sort of an eye looking over his shoulder at a certain Mr. Andy Burnham, who the pundits say is very likely now to be elected as the next member of Parliament for Makerfield. But we'll see what the Lord will do about that. Don't worry about that. We'll see what the Lord will do. So he may be looking over his shoulder and thinking of his legacy. And because if somebody was genuinely interested in stopping children being sexualized, then they will put an end to sex education in schools. But of course, the educational establishment, most of them, I should say, think that it's a good thing to make children aware of all the things that they should be careful about with sex. There is a subgroup, of course, well, two subgroups. One group is just plain evil and wants to sexualize children, wants to corrupt them. The other group, weird lot. This is why I say you should never allow people to talk to your children about sex who want to talk to your children about sex. There are some very peculiar people who get a vicarious pleasure out of thinking of children doing sexual activity. So, but I mean, we know that sex and relationships education is corrupting children. So, if anybody were really serious about stopping children being sexualized, they would be evicting the sex educators from the classroom. So there is that about it as well. We haven't got on got onto the drawbacks yet, but that's so far as the arguments go.
Well, we mustn't forget the rape gangs, grooming gangs. When he was head of CPS and when he was in other functions along his life story, not just the last 2 years, he has done nothing about the rape gangs. Why? He wants the vote. Now, even though the vote might have gone green, it's caught him out, hasn't it, Steve?
Well, yes, that is, of course, an electorally maybe an electorally appropriate way of looking at it. The other way, of course, is that they're seeing a lot of things through their multicultural lens, and they are very concerned not to have Muslims. Let's be frank about it. Muslims painted in an indifferent or hostile light in the media. So that's why they were doing that. I mean, yes, if he was genuinely concerned about keeping the population safe, he wouldn't be splashing money on welfare, net zero, cycle lanes, ID. He would be spending it on defence. And also, he would be taking pains to keep the population safe from any kind of the worst dregs of humanity who are washing up on our shores, or flying into Dublin and catching a bus to Belfast, for that matter, and then being granted asylum by the previous government. So there's a touch of uniparty about this as well, Roddy. Don't worry, which just means that whichever establishment party gets into office, the real power is just wielded in the corridors of power, in the civil service and the quangocracy.
Yeah, and if we were a little bit skeptical, we can see what's been happening since a certain spin doctor was brought back in to number 10, having left with his tail between his legs. You can see the spinning, and even to the boat we captured. Well, I say we captured the Marines, and they were brilliant with an American plane or helicopter dropping on the deck of the ship to confront 25 seamen. And lo and behold, we saw them with all the latest Star Wars guns, and it was a setup. It was a PR stunt.
I tell you what, you could have dropped me on that boat. I would have taken that boat with an air rifle. I mean, it's just pathetic. And I mean, how many Russian, oil ships have been through the Channel? It's in the, I think it's in the 70s, but this is the one that they decided to. I don't know. I think in the old days it would have been called piracy on the high seas, but there we are. And I understand the first person dropped from the helicopter was not a soldier, but a photographer, a video recorder. So they definitely wanted to catch the thing for for posterity or something. But then they swapped the place with Royal Marines, just sort of round up a few unarmed seamen is beyond parody to be honest. But we have there's a by-election coming up. You see, this week we have to look tough and face down Putin. And all that sort of stuff, you see. So, of course, for the point of view of the Ministry of Defence, both the soldiers the generals and admirals and air commodores and stuff. Their real enemy, is not sitting in the Kremlin in Moscow. Their real enemy is sitting in the Treasury in Whitehall, and it's very important to have that in your mind when you're thinking about anything to do with the military. I know that the Ministry of Defence is an utter shambles. We have 5 protective submarines. I think that of the 3 Vanguard class, I believe that I'm right in saying that those are the ones that carry the nuclear warheads. Whatever they're called, they are at sea. No one knows where. But there are 5 support submarines. Guess what? They're all in dock. They're all in dock, and we can only muster one ship to send to sea. It used to be said back in the day that a Royal Naval captain longed to have his first command of a ship. These days, he longs to set foot on one. So there aren't that many. So there you go. I'm not even sure that there was a Royal Navy ship involved in the capture of the oil tanker. If there was, it would have been some sort of a refueling tanker or something, because our only seaworthy warship is, I think, in the Mediterranean at the moment. But hey, as long as they're only spending your money and mine, they're not that bothered, really.
Even to the Trooping of the Colour this weekend, of course, we've had the biggest fly past in years. But if you sort of got your goggles on and saw that what was flying past, Red Arrows, brilliant people flying the things, but you can't use those in a serious war. They're 20 years out of date. Everything was 20 years out of date. It might have been able to fly bravely over Buckingham Palace, but that was it. It's all a show.
Yeah, I mean, I understand they can only put 7 Red Arrows in the air now rather than 9, for whatever reason. Yeah, I mean, I think it's Colonel Richard Kemp. No, I think it's Al Khan's MP, the Minister of Foreign Forces, who resigned along with John Healey last week. He said that they're continually fighting the last war and not getting equipped for the next one, which is all going to be about drone warfare and AI and satellites and all that stuff. So it's they're still fighting last one. Tanks apparently are now redundant, because you can send a drone costing a couple of £1,000, and you can knock out a tank which has cost you hundreds of thousands. So it's a very it's an unstable world. I don't think it's well, it is unstable, but not in a direction that they all think it is. They can't make up their mind in their public announcements. They can't make up their mind whether Putin is a threat to Europe and about to unleash his land forces all over NATO lands, or if he's like a sitting duck for the Ukrainian forces who've just are just strafing a Russian bridge and stuff and fighting back against the Russians. So they can't make up their mind whether the Russians are a threat or whether they're on the back foot. And personally, I don't. If the Russians can't even take the Donbass region of Ukraine, and I mean all of it, as it were, then I can't honestly see them capturing Poland. Can you?
I doubt it. Mind you, I believe that you've had a very good weekend. You've enjoyed yourself this weekend. Watching a certain gentleman being filleted by a commentator, a lady commentator, and you're still laughing about it, Stephen.
But this is a story of Naga Munchetty and the minister Peter Kyle MP. And if you haven't seen it, just put those into a popular internet search engine and watch the video. Mr. Kyle was sent out over the weekend to defend the government's defence policy and its defence budget. And the first rule, I think, of being interviewed is don't give the interviewer a hostage to fortune. So Mr. Kyle said to Naga Munchetty, I mean, she's not a stupid girl. This one, she's a bright little thing, and uh, he said, I think when you see the budget, you'll like it. And she said, have you seen it? I mean, it's such an obvious question. He says, I think when you see it, you'll like it. The obvious question which she popped up with was, have you seen it? And he said, no, I haven't seen it. She said, you haven't seen it, but you think when I see it, I'll like it. And your colleagues, Al Carnes and John Healey, had they seen it? Oh yes, I said, of course they had. They're in the Ministry of Defence. She said they saw it and they didn't like it. But you say when I see it, I will like it, and you haven't seen it and you like it. And he was in a complete mess. So yeah, that was entertaining over the weekend as well. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not the first minister that's been sidelined in that way. Don't forget the famous radio broadcast from Minister of Defence. How many warships have you got? Yeah, and that went on for a minute before he.
Well, actually, that was John. Yeah, that was John Healey who was
Yes,
asked. In fact, the same John Healey. He was asked how many warships are there by Nick Ferrari, and he actually, in the end, he floundered. He gave the wrong number. He said 17. The right number was 13, which is a bit of a shock when you think of when you think of the size of Nelson's navy. We only have 13. I mean, I think only one of those is seaworthy. So yeah, embarrassment all round. They really, if you're a minister, you need to be on top of your brief, I would suggest. That's why I think the Lord sets out the criteria for leaders to be honest and truthful and humble and God-fearing, but also to be competent, to be able men. So yeah, I think there's a sense here. There's a sense of encouragement as well here, though. That Ronnie, that we when we pray, Lord, will you do something? We would well, we pray, what can we do? But then at the end, we're going to say, Lord, that it is time for thee to act. They've set at naught thy law. That's from Psalm 119. So we'll pray that, Lord, do something. And if the Lord can sow incompetence like that, then he can do anything. And some of them they are hopeless, and that's actually grounds for hope rather than despondency. The Lord can make them make complete fools of themselves, and the Lord can deliver a general election result maybe in the nick of time, which will save this nation. That's what we're praying for, I think, because the only alternative to the general election result, which will save us, is civil war. And I'm not the only one who's saying that. Kemi Badenoch saying that. Dr. David Betts, Professor of War Studies at King's College, is saying that as well. So that's not scaremongering. That's the reality. Unless they get their act together, you saw a protest in Sheffield over the weekend, which was marked by violence from the opposing lot. Yet again, the police won't say which side those that they've charged were from, whether they from the United Kingdom or raise the flag people, or whether they were from the Antis. If they won't say, that means they were probably nearly all from the Antis. Otherwise, they would say. So, yeah, it's interesting times.
A lot of people are picking up the point that our police have changed because of DEI, because of weakness. Lots of things are contributing towards it. But they're taking note how much this is affecting the ordinary Joe, even the ordinary Christian.
Where 3 stories came together with West Yorkshire Police. This is just one force. West Yorkshire Police, they spent something like £1.5 million on DEI. It's equivalent to the salaries of 45 police officers, apparently. That's number one. Number two is they were keen to retain staff, but only ethnic minority and diversity box ticking staff. That was number two. And number three was that they sacked an advisor who had the temerity to point out to them that they were rather siding with Muslims rather than Jews when they were putting their policies together. Sacked her. So that's West Yorkshire Police. And then, of course, in the trial of the Southampton protesters, some of whom had acted in a rather less than savoury manner. Throwing bricks at the police. I don't for a second condone that. But the judge, actually, same judge that sentenced the attacker of Vikram Digwa, the murderer of Henry Novak, same judge, just a week later, is sitting in judgment over these five guys in Southampton, and it actually said to them that their actions had resulted in a police bill of almost £450,000. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary have spent twice that amount on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, don't pull that one, Your Honour. It's just that treats us all as if we're idiots. Yeah, I'm afraid that's what they do anyway. They are treating us as if we're fools. And I think there's probably a summer. In fact, the police are already planning for a summer of discontent. With people going out on the streets and making noise, as we say in Kenya.
Well, yes, there's a lot of discontent. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. But this may be linked to the spiritual temperature of the nation. We keep saying, Stephen, both of us, we've tried everything, politics, training our children, bringing them up the right way, or indeed the wrong way. But we don't look to the obvious as Christians, as a church. And there's something desperately needed and missing from our nation.
I mean, in all of this discussion about social media, I think we are forgetting that parents have, not only are they responsible for their children, they have a duty to bring them up properly. I mean, the Apostle Paul says, parents, provoke not your children to. So in that verse there, or that little segment of the verse, is the understanding that parents are there to encourage their children, to build them up, to help them attain excellence. And the Proverbs, of course, says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So there is that element as well. And, we're on, not only are parents, Christian parents, giving children mobile phones and allowing them to take them to their bedrooms and stay on their phone all night when they should be asleep and stuff. Not only are the parents doing that and allowing their children to be scrolling in family time, but the parents are there scrolling as well. Christian parents, we're on our mobile phones. I mean, what on earth is that all about? I mean, what we should be doing with our children, or Christian parents, you should be chatting to your children about things that have happened during the day, measuring the things that have happened by against the laws of God, talking about behavior, about morality. And the Bible in the book of Deuteronomy says, you talk about God's ways diligently unto thy children, shall talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, King James Version. In other words, all the time. So you should always be chatting to your children, not doing mobile phones. So, I think that the social media ban is good, but it should have been parents who brought it in, not children. The other thing, of course, is how's it going to be enforced? In Australia, they brought one in, and the children have found clever ways immediately to get round the age limitations. So what I'm seeing here is that somebody's going to have the bright idea. This could work really well if we bring in digital ID. And of course, they wanted to make their Brit card compulsory, but there was a public outcry. So now it's going to be optional and not compulsory. So public can opt in if they want. Well, and then they'll say, well, that's how the social media is going to work. If you have one of these cards, you'll be able to log into social media, but your kids, of course, won't be able to. So there's that as well. And you can be absolutely certain that there are people now, civil servants and quangocrats, sitting around working out what policy baubles they can hang on this Christmas tree of a bill. And by the time it sees the light of day, it's going to be very different, I think, from what a lot of people had in mind. Ronald Reagan. I mean, whenever the government said they're going to help children, and it's absolutely true that the children need to get off social media. I mean, children have been driven to suicide by social media, so it's really important. But Ronald Reagan told us the nine most terrifying words in English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." So that it is a little bit terrifying. I mean, there was one guy made a note of his name and his comment, Jeffrey DeMarco at Save the Children, and he spoke of a risk of pushing children into less regulated spaces where they are less likely to seek help when something goes wrong. I mean, what kind of guy is this? The spaces are not regulated now, and the children are not seeking help now. Where is he coming from? I'm not going. I don't want to go any further on that. So
I think Sir Keir Starmer said two things today that were very frightening. One, you've mentioned about ID being a way, or if you wish, proving your age through the various clever systems that you can, facial recognition, etc., etc. He clearly wants this as a way into ID. And the other thing that slipped out in the conversation was, yeah, I'm not happy with people, the kids in their bedrooms. They should be out playing. Should they, Sir Keir, when you're letting so many illegal immigrants in and we daren't let our kids out? The guy is totally incompetent. He's not got his feet on the ground. He's not in the outside of the Westminster bubble. He's in La La Land.
really, I mean, he is, yes. I think there's a museum which has recently taken to putting trigger warnings on Janet and John books. Not because they're dull, but because they have outdated attitudes. Like I think John sometimes helps his dad with the car, or is that with the famous Five and the Ladybird books? I might be getting my books mixed up, but no, there was the age when we used to play outside and stuff. We could do, but no, he is living in the past. Like the Ministry of Defence fighting the last war. So Keir Starmer thinks it's still the 1960s with children, and it isn't. And the way that the United Kingdom is now, I'm afraid, is the result of people like him and his friends who've moved this nation away from the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel. And the first thing that they need to do, to be honest, is to proclaim our Christian constitution and take us back to the rule of King Jesus. It's just, very sad. I mean, look, people need to be we all need to be praying for this election in Makerfield. Again, have confidence. I would say that the Lord can and will do something unexpected. So keep praying the Lord will send us relief, be merciful for us, be merciful to us.
Yeah, you can't work out all the different machinations of that election. It could go 100 ways. And as you say, God's the only one that can bring it out in the end. It may be a bad result in many senses, in the Christian sense, but in the end, it will work out.
Amen. Amen. That is what sustains our hope. But I still say to people, you still have to pray into it. And you still have to be asking the Lord for what you can do. And we're providing the information that Christians need to pray into this stuff, and also we'll give you things to do as well. Lobby your MP, or at least pray for them. At least tell them you're praying for them. So there's a lot to do. But by God's grace, we will be delivered, and only by His grace.
Stephen, thank you so much. We'll see you shortly.